thinking about David Moyes quite a lot in recent days, largely because I feel his demeanour has changed. I've mentioned it before in numerous videos, I won't labour the point again. Feeling in interviews, he's been a lot more snappy, and it's hard not to look at it and think, well, is the pressure getting to him? Is what he's building not crumbling around him? Because I think long-term his strategy remains the same, but in terms of where he's been this season, where West Ham are this season, is it coming apart at the seams a little bit? Now, the more I've thought about David Moyes, I've started to think about regret and how he is with regret. And off the back of the podcast he did with Jake Humphries, was it a month or so ago, something like that, during that he was asked if he had any regrets about Manchester United, and he did. I've heard him in interviews before saying that he would have liked to have done things differently. I think in the Jake Humphries podcast he mentioned that perhaps he'd have liked to have gone there 8 years later. Don't know why, don't know the significance of 8 years, but anyway, there was some regret there. The way he handled players, he would have done it slightly different. My point is he's quite reflective. It's not the first time I've heard him do it. He speaks about Everton in such ways. He would have handled the players a little bit differently. The management game has changed. Man management, how you handle players, that sort of thing. He has regret that he wasn't able to finish the job at Everton. He has regret he wasn't able to succeed in, was it Real Sociedad, I believe it was. And that's all fine. By the way, there's nothing wrong with regret at all. But I do feel what is really important, because we've all done things that we regret, is that sometimes you can see things coming, which you are going to later regret. We've all done it, right? That thing you get invited to, that thing you get asked to do, that opportunity that arises. And sometimes you just say, do you know what, I am going to do that, because if I don't, I might regret it. Just a little bit of foresight. You might be right, you might be wrong. And I just wonder if David Moyes is at that point right now. Because we get into a situation where some of the players look fatigued and tired. And also he seems to have some favourites in the squad. Some players that will just play in that first team regardless of anything else. And I just wonder if David Moyes would sort of look at that and think, well, you know what, if I don't get this right, I'm in the semi-finals of the Europa League. This is the biggest match of David Moyes' life. I don't care what anyone says. It absolutely is. You could probably chart it back and say, well, maybe the last match before he got sacked at Man United was, or whatever. Forget it. This match is. And he finds himself here, and the very same team selections, the very same tactics, the very same ethos that got him here to this semi-final might not work. Because, look, he's decided to go within squad. I think it's starting to unravel just a little bit. Not in all areas. You've seen Declan Rice, seen Zuma in the last games, seen Bowen. Some players are still on tip-top form. They really are. But it's how he navigates those around there. He has to come and think up now a team selection and a set of tactics that he's not going to look back and think, oh, you know what, if only I had done X, Y, Z, and I'm going to name a few players in a minute, if only I'd have done that, I could have won the Europa League. I've heard it all before, by the way. I've heard Roy Hodgson talk about regret. He reached the final, it was then the UEFA Cup, he reached the final with Fulham. He regretted he would have done some things differently. Steve McLaren, old Steve. If you don't know what I'm doing, he's gone weird. Yeah, well, just go and Google Steve McLaren Dutch accent, and you'll understand. But when he with Middlesbrough, when he got to the final, didn't he, of the UEFA Cup as well, he has regrets of things he didn't do there. And I do really feel it's important that David Moyes at this exact point recognises that actually you will be that guy in 10, 15 years' time doing the interview, asking about what you'd have done differently in the semi-final against Frankfurt. Now, far be it from me to tell David Moyes' job. I really wouldn't, but I do get the impression that he's disappointed in some players. I think some of his comments have been unusually snappy. I find him, whilst he's not the most effervescent of characters, I find him quite generously spirited man, and he's been snappy and sort of nasty, not nasty, but you know, rude, short, unforgiving, I feel, with the interviewers as well. And some of the things he said about some of the players have not really been like him. And I hope that the pressure is not telling on him, because actually we're still banging this tie. We really are. But it's really important that he looks at, there are 2 or 3 players who may have got him here, who I think he needs to probably deal with and assess selfishly. And when I say selfishly, assess, not think, oh, hold on, how good were they at the start of this season? How good were they last season for me? Actually, I'm David Moyes, I'm a manager, I'm almost 60, he's 59 as I understand it. This is my opportunity to win a trophy, and actually I've got to do what's best for David Moyes, which in turn will be what's best for West Ham. Before I go any further, can I just point you in the direction of our Patreon, please? What's Patreon? Well, it's Hammers Chat's Patreon account, and what it is, it's basically an account where we have a monthly subscription to get additional Hammers Chat content, and a way that you can support Hammers Chat in us trying to do this for a job. We've got loads of additional content, so much it's almost impossible to go through it all. I mean, for instance, this week we've got breakfast shows, we've got player ratings, we've got opposition previews. I'll be doing a podcast on Friday where we're basically, just on the Patreon channel, we'll be dissecting whatever happens on Thursday. We just don't know. You get discounts to our store where you can get t-shirts like this. Literally, you get really good percentages of discounts. We've got several different tiers of patronage as well. And, well, I'll tell you what we've actually got as well. We've given away so many tickets this season. Honestly, we gave away Frankfurt tickets. We've got Man City tickets for the final game coming up. I've honestly lost count the amount. We've got signed shirts coming up. We give away so much stuff to our patrons. Do you know why? Because we're grateful. They allow us to do this as a job. If you'd like to help or support Hammers Chat, I'm even doing a little praying up my hand. Look at my hands. There's body language for you. We'd very much appreciate it. The link is in the description below. It's patreon.com/Hammers Chat. Take a look at all the different tier lists. Basically, they all get you different increments and different privileges, if you want to call it. That's a crap old word for it anyway. But yeah, any help is very much appreciated. Thank you. First thing I'll be dealing with, and you may have gathered this from the preview, is I'd probably be looking at Thomas Souček. And just be looking and think, okay, what does Thomas Souček offer me here in terms of me getting through this tie? When I say me, I'm thinking like David Moyes here. In terms of me getting through this tie and getting to a final, well, not an awful lot at the moment, is the truth. That guy that would petrify, if this had been last season, Frankfurt would be petrified of Thomas Souček. I mean, they really, really would. They'd have to make contingency plans. Thomas Souček was so good last season that the opposition had to adjust their tactics to deal with him. At the moment, Frankfurt don't have to do anything to deal with Thomas Souček. He is just basically like a plodding standard midfielder. They don't have to make any sort of special provision for him at all. If I was David Moyes, I'd be looking at that and thinking, well, forget what Souček's done. Am I going to be able to get a tune out of him now? And I think, it's a tough decision. It's either he can or he can't. But what I wouldn't be doing, what I think is important and Moyes doesn't do, is select him from the start and after 70 minutes think this isn't working. Because there's one thing about Thomas Souček. When he starts, he's not withdrawn from the field of play. We're stuck with whatever he does. And it's important that David Moyes changes that as well. Otherwise, that's another regret. He might look back. It's not just I might have selected this player. The regret he might have if we don't go through is, what if I'd have made this substitution? It's going to be full of what-ifs. And David Moyes mustn't have what-ifs in this situation here. He really mustn't. What's he going to do with Antonio? I mean, the way he speaks about Antonio now, just listen to it. Don't take my word for it. Don't take my interpretation of it. Listen how David Moyes, in interviews, speaks about Antonio at the start of the season. And now, listen to this. Even just his tone of voice and the words he says. Listen now. It ain't the same. It has not turned out with Antonio how David Moyes anticipated. This was not the plan. The plan hasn't worked out. I'm sorry to say this. And it doesn't mean that overall we can't do well, we can't qualify for Europa League and we can't win the Europa League. We can. But by and large, Antonio on his own as a striker scoring lots of goals has not really worked out massively well. I get the impression, you do as well, and I think even David Moyes does, that actually he should have probably gone with 2 strikers this season. To see Mikel Antonio be rested and then as a late substitute against Arsenal and then not really impact the game was a major worry. David Moyes has got to sort that out. Because again, that's another regret. He doesn't want to look back in years gone by and thought, oh, you know what, if only I'd done something different with Antonio in that second semi-final. The other thing he's got to deal with is Aaron Cresswell. Aaron Cresswell was targeted in the last game. Aaron Cresswell brings a lot to the team, and it may well be, don't get me wrong, this game can be decided by an Aaron Cresswell cross or a set piece or something, a Thomas Souček header, an Antonio goal. I mean, they could all be part of it, but David Moyes has got to understand what's the dynamic difference between the squad now and at the start of the season when we were sweeping all before us. Our form was really good at the start of the season. At the moment, it's crap. It is just crap. I thought we did okay against Arsenal, but you know what? We've lost. Actually, the same could be said for Chelsea, to be perfectly honest with you. I thought we acquitted ourselves really, really well against them, but come the end of the game, we couldn't pick up the 3 points. So it's all very well saying, okay, we battled right, but we're not fluid, we're not clicking like we were. Well, what is it? And this is for David Moyes to figure out. And what he can't do is figure it out after the semi-final, because this is, I believe, his career-defining game. Win this game and get through to the final and win the final, David Moyes, I feel, can then push on. He can actually take us up to the next level. We're going to the Champions League. We get all the money that comes from that. We get the prestige that comes from that. He then becomes a trophy-winning manager. And that becomes a habit. I mentioned Klopp the other day. Semi-final, final, missing out. Eventually you get it and you get the habit of winning. And I do sometimes say sometimes you need to get to the final and lose it to get that winning mentality. David Moyes can't afford that, because for a lot of players this is their last game. Whatever happens, and particularly if we lose this game, it won't be that this team gets to go again next season. This will be, and it has to happen this way, there'll be the breakup of this team. Some players will be retained, but in the main, there are a number of players at West Ham who I think David Moyes has improved. I think David Moyes has improved Cresswell. I think he's improved Antonio. And there are others as well. But I think they're not going to push on and be better again next season. Cresswell's not going to be better next season. Antonio's probably not going to be better next season. They've already peaked as players. I'm not saying they're past their sell-by date, but you'd be quite surprised if David Moyes still goes through all next season with those two as guaranteed starters. It's really important he gets this right, obviously. I state the bleeding obvious here, but this is a career-defining game for him. Win this, he goes on with confidence. He gets talked about across Europe. He gets probably the acclaim. I don't think David Moyes wants acclaim. I don't think he wants everybody talking about him and praising him and saying what a wonderful manager David Moyes is. But he's proud of his. I'll tell you what, he won the LMA, their League Managers LMA, League Managers Association Award, League Managers Award, whatever. I can't remember. It's the award for being the best manager of the year, the LMA Award. I should know, really, shouldn't I? He won. He's proud of that, Everton. He mentions it. He makes out he's shy, and he is shy, but he's proud. He does say, I won the LMA Award when I was at Everton. He's proud of that. He sometimes lets it out in a press conference, I'm a winning manager. You know, that sort of thing. I win games. I do all this stuff. So I think whilst he doesn't necessarily want loads of acclaim, I think it's important to him to have not just a sense of pride, but actually to be respected amongst his peers, respected amongst football fans, and to be seen as somebody that's an achiever. I'm not sure he gets to another semi-final if he doesn't do it this time. I'm not saying, particularly not one in Europe. I mean, I reckon we might be able to do it in the FA Cup or something like that. This is the best chance. There's other clubs hot on our heels. Might be Newcastle, might be Aston Villa, might be other clubs who are looking to spend money. What we do is by getting a second season, by winning a trophy, we just elevate ourselves above them. We basically make ourselves Leicester for a bit. Now, as you've seen with Leicester, they can drop off. They might win the Europa League or whatever, I don't know. But we make ourselves Leicester. And that's no bad thing at the moment. Regrets, hopefully he doesn't have any at all. Really big couple of days for David Moyes. He's got to be decisive. He's got to have the right demeanour. He's got to put the players out on a pitch with the right spring in their step. And most importantly, he's got to make the right decisions. There is a combination in that team with West Ham that gets us through this time. There's a combination there. I don't know what it is. There's a combination of tactics and players that will beat Frankfurt. All right, it's not the Brazil side of the 1970s we're facing here. You know, they're all right. But they're not unbeatable. They're really not. In fact, they get beaten quite a bit. You know, they've not been brilliant this season. The trouble is, at the moment, we get beaten quite a bit as well. He's had a chance to have a really good look at them. This is not a scouting report he's got through. He's actually been able to stand on the touchline for 90 minutes and look at Frankfurt. He's got to come up with something now. For David Moyes, this is the ultimate test.